Andrea Kalu. Type Gary Farrow's name into a Google search engine and you come up with scores of pictures of a smug, pudgy-faced bastard smoozing with the likes of Elton John. The Independent newspaper describes Gary as a consummate media networker, though not one with particularly refined taste, given that his PR client list includes Jeremy Clarkson, Sharon Osbourne, and Gordon fucking Ramsay. Somewhat bizarrely, Gary also functions as a Waikato reporter for Stuff and has been renowned in the past for his coverage of local body politics in the Hamilton News, a publication he briefly edited. He also graced the Auckland Airways for 4.5 years as a current affairs writer and host on 95 BFM. He knows the family of at least one member of the Manic Street Preachers rather well. Give it up for Gary Farrow.
Good evening, everyone. As a reporter for the Cambridge edition, who has been given the privilege of speaking in Cambridge Town Hall in that context, I thought it would be fitting to share with you some of the history behind the newspaper and its founder, Leslie Wyatt. That's her on the left there. Born in Hamilton in 1942, she amassed great experience working for the Waikato Times and Sydney Morning Herald before working as editor for the former Cambridge Independent. Eventually, Leslie left that role around 1980, but soon heard from a Cambridge businessman and friend who said the paper had taken a nosedive in her absence. Leslie, he asked if she had ever thought of starting her own free community paper in Cambridge. Leslie hadn't, but her friend's idea was enough to set the ball rolling, and she took a $20,000 mortgage on her house, and in 1981 she set up what was then called the New Edition, in a small space in the print house near the railway line, which is no longer here. Leslie employed a skilled team, but said the first publication of the newspaper was, and I quote, agony, the most contracted, painful and difficult birth on record, as far as we're concerned anyway. What a beast, she continued. Unlibelous words fail me. So it was extra painful when the paper went to print and there was that error in the main headline there, cite, grammatical error. My gosh. But Leslie and the team learned from their mistakes, honed their trade and pushed on. In 9 months' time, the business had already outgrown its office and moved part of the operation into the Central Court building before moving completely into the old Central Hotel building on the corner of Duke and Empire Streets. 2 years after starting the New Edition, it was decided the name would be changed to the Cambridge Edition, both because the paper wasn't new anymore and because it had established itself in the community as a reputed publication, particularly thanks to Leslie's political writing about the Cambridge Borough Council, which was later amalgamated and became the Waipa District Council of today. So there were various changes to the style of the front page masthead over the years, changing from the New Edition to the Cambridge Edition, of course, and alternating between colours, as you can see by these displays. One of the funnest things about the old newspaper is, although they were originally printed in black and white, as the years continued on, as the team became able to feature colour, they started to add splashes to it, splashes of colour, as you can see here. I also really enjoy looking back at pictures like this, looking back at our archive. We've got every newspaper on record. It's some of Leslie's political coverage, and also the fact that she managed to have a lot of females represented in the team. So it was a very progressive workplace that she was managing in that sense. So there had been a high turnover of staff throughout the years, but that seems to be how it works in the media anyway. The next career progression is only a step away when you've put the hard yards in, but I'm sure a lot of the staff who work here hold really fond memories of working with Leslie and the team. Now, in 1987, the Edition became one of the first newspapers in the country to own an Apple Macintosh SE, which revolutionised the newsroom as the digital word processing software could be used. This is a picture of the computer on Leslie's old desk, actually, which is both of which are now preserved at Cambridge Museum just down the road. So you can see how small that computer is relatively. That's a 9-inch screen. So Leslie invested a huge amount of money in the computer, though, seriously. She wrote that she paid it off at something like 18% interest, which brought the final cost to around 30,000 New Zealand dollars for that. So it became known affectionately as the smallest and most expensive computer in New Zealand. To put what I've just told you into context, that phone next to it had 2,000 megabytes of RAM, whereas the computer had 1 megabyte of RAM. So around that time, a company called Independent Newspapers Limited approached Leslie with an interest in buying the Cambridge Edition, and initially they separated it 50-50, but about a year later she sold it completely because the accounting was just becoming difficult. In 2002, Leslie retired after more than 22 years at the helm of the Edition, and she said it was a breath of fresh air to let blood and new ideals into the paper, and she received an honour from the local community board, as you can see in that picture there. Leslie maintained her connections and passion with the community following her retirement, but she passed away in 2014 after a spate of illness, and she received huge recognition as a person who had contributed to the connections in the Cambridge community. And for me, that shows how important community journalism is. News director Lawrence Gullery and reporter Mike Bain are both working with me to help keep the Cambridge Edition going under the ownership of Stuff. And it's something of value to the community that we really want to foster. So having studied politics as well as journalism, I'm particularly passionate about continuing Leslie Wyatt's legacy and reporting on politics relating to Cambridge and the surrounds, including Te Awamutu. One of the points of motivation I use is to wonder what Leslie might have thought of my political work that I'm doing. So for now, the Cambridge Edition team works away in an office on Anzac Street, and the community, we maintain our connections, and it's a testament to the newspaper that Leslie Wyatt strived to build back in 1981. Thanks very much.